Would you believe that I am standing here inside of an engine bay with a 200 to 300 horsepower engine installed right behind me? Especially in a Miata? Well, that happens to be the case here. And you guys are in for one wild ride. So what is inside of this box? Well, I'm gonna call this one the Joel. Affectionately, of course. But this has been honestly a dream of mine for the longest time. That is a one rotor E-shaft. I've been wanting to do this longer than I've been wanting to do any of the other ones. Atkins up in Washington State makes these. There's nothing to it. Literally, the accessories for the front of the motor is the same width as the actual motor itself. The idea is this. A stock Miata makes 132 horsepower at the crank. A turbo one rotor should make a lot more than that. If I make 200 horsepower of this thing, the Miata is gonna be an absolutely insane rocket and weigh even less. This weighs how much? I need to know. 7-pound E-shaft. We'll use standard counterweights, and if we have some tricks up our sleeve, those counterweights are also gonna shed a lot of weight too. So this whole rotating assembly is gonna be insanely light, and our goal is to make this the lightest 13B based engine ever made. We have probably the most rare, unique combination of E-shafts here on the floor. It has been my dream to build a 6-rotor turbo. So this one's one of the very few that are hardened to be turbocharged. This is the infamous center bearing 4-rotor, which this is the spare one. This is my old 3-rotor E-shaft, which is still good, it just needs to be cleaned up. Here's a standard 2-rotor E-shaft, and then the mighty little baby is right here. The only thing I'm missing is Mazay's 5-rotor. This is a rotary owner's dream, and then everybody's nightmare when it comes to looking at your bank account. Now building these into engines. With this being a very, very rare, as in the only time in the world it's ever been done, I want to go through just some real quick differences between all of the different E-shafts. This is rotor 1. It's the very front rotor on the engine. There's a bearing in front of it, and then all of your shit goes to the front. These styles tend to have this. So when you get a 3, 4, 5, 6, they have threads on the outside. That's why I didn't line it up to the front of these, because these have a butt plug that goes in, and then there's like an oil regulator thing for this area. But rotor 1 is essentially 0 on every motor. You're timing to the front rotor when it's at top dead center. When you have 2, they're firing as opposite as possible, 1 and 180, so you get more even pulses. 3, well, you can't do 180, so it ends up being 1, 2, 3 in order. So it's a third of a circle, a third of a circle, third of a circle. And the 3-rotor is gonna have this weird space here. That's because back in the 90s, 80s, this is the best way Mazda handled having a bearing here, whereas our E-shafts don't have as much space taken up right in there. So just a small difference makes a big difference on the length of the engine. This one fires first, and then 3, so it's 1, 3, 2, 4. And the idea there is that it's a little bit more balanced. Then you get to the big chungus right here, and they are firing once every 6th of a circle. So this is the stock Miata transmission. It currently weighs 82 pounds. Our goal is to try and utilize this as much as possible for the project. Now, what is the project? Well, this looks like I'm just setting a couple plates next to each other, and that is true, but that is the size of a 1-rotor. The back of the motor does not in any way line up. We're missing a lot of potential mounting points, and I could machine a flange. That's one of the options here. But one of the things that we're really considering is using a Turbo 2 bell housing. So this also creates a handful of issues because it doesn't bolt to anything. So the bell housing on the Miata goes all the way to back here, cutting all this off and then making a flange for this to bolt to that. That would solve a couple problems and create a couple more. We're gonna tear apart this transmission right now and get this part off, because that's our only chance for utilizing this at all, is taking it apart. A couple of the deal breakers to making this transmission work are, does the stock splines work over and make this worth the effort? No. That is a much smaller spline, so we would have to get a different clutch. This is one of the rare times we've ever cracked open a stock transmission in the shop. That part stays the same, but now I gotta do some serious math to see if I can get this to bolt onto that. This situation resorts into being very creative with the stuff we have in the shop. What we need to see is the stock Miata input shaft, how far it goes until it bottoms out into an E-shaft. This is a bad situation, so what I'll do is I'll add whatever, 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch more, but this now tells me exactly the total length of this flange all the way to this flange. So that's gonna include the Miata case, an adapter, and the FC bell housing. Now the thing that scares me, if I machine back here, we're in trouble. But if the bell housing only needs to be machined about here, not so bad. We now know the total distance from this face to that face, and it is shorter than this. So it is 13.31 inches. How tall is this piece? I'll just say 5.7 inches. The good news though is that this shape appears to go around here. So if I make a flange that we weld onto it, it might be sitting on top of each of these arms. And we might not be able to bolt all the bolts in, but as long as I don't machine into this, we are good. That did exactly what I was dreaming of. It's actually a pretty good finish for me going fast with that tool. But what I'm gonna need to do is basically 3D scan both sides and then find the size of a piece that lets me connect them together. This is a new product from Creality, which is known for their 3D printers, the 3D scanner. This appears to be the perfect solution for what we need. I went and bought these just in case, but it comes with a shit ton of those marks. Clearly, this is the center of it all. You have to admit that's pretty sick. Okay, so we're just gonna take the turbo. Okay. As soon as it picked up on those, I can't even see the laser lines. Oh, there you go, there you go. Okay. Look at how far away I am from it. That was actually pretty sick. It just finished doing that. It looks incredible.
Wow, that's really good quality.
Yeah, I only put these 5 on there, so especially with the part that you'd want to scan this side, you need to have more dots. But that was a couple seconds of work, and you can see where the dot was. You can see the texture of the casting. That's accurate casting texture. That's absolutely incredible. I'm gonna get more familiar with it, and then we're gonna show you exactly what we're gonna use it for. We are going crazy on this one rotor build, and one of the most important things is the drivetrain. We are taking half of a Mazda RX-7, half of a Mazda Miata, and of course we have to CNC, weld, and 3D scan all of that to make it work. This is 10 seconds into scanning, and it's painted that whole section. FC bell housing, half of a Miata transmission, a little weird disc that I'm about to cut out of this CNC machine right here, and let's get started with just drilling. while we've got the opportunity, I'm going to tap the holes because it's being held in here, and as soon as I've done that, it's time to cut out the outside edge halfway, clean up, make it look pretty, and then cut the rest of it out. This should bolt onto the bell housing and hold it in all of those spots. I've cut this almost completely to the bottom, and the guys can, finish that up. Chamfered it, tapped all the holes almost all the way through just so I could get it done. Looks like one of my tools is slowly wearing, but cleaned up the edge. So this will be the bell housing side facing up. It's actually not an issue on the camera side. It is on an angle to make this flat, which is the bottom of the motor. On the RX-7, the transmission's leaned slightly. On the Miata, it's not. The other interesting thing is you can see that these bolts have a lot of play in them. It gives us that little bit of realistic room at this point to get it centered and then lock it in hardcore. That way we don't have to worry about that coming out. Otherwise, I was thinking about machining a ring here, and I don't know, I didn't feel like doing all that. So while Christian cuts out the other piece, we're gonna cut the negative out of this. So we should see all of this disappear all the way around here, not cutting into this or these. This I can cut into because it's a weird casting thing, but we should see so much less in a moment. All that work just to make a ring. Christian is still cleaning up these edges on the bottom side because they all had to be cut out. Before he cuts too much out, I want to make sure this fits where it's supposed to fit. That leg goes in there, that leg goes in there.
Fancy.
And when that one's cleaned out, that's it. And look at that, the outer edges. Oh man, that is cool. This is post-welding, threaded, everything looks good here. I just grabbed a couple M10, 1.5, everything's looking good there. And so what I want to do is test fit this together before we go any further. So this flat side should be on the bottom, and that should be on the bottom of this transmission. So no question that they all thread in perfectly fine. So this is our creation. It's so accurate that we could run this without any other adjustments. There's nothing else that needs to be made, but that's absolutely useless, insane way of adapting a Miata to a rotary, doing it backwards from everybody else. But that just means that we can do just about anything in the shop now. We are going to assemble a dummy block. The way it looks is just hilarious, but we have a couple different really weird challenges that only exist when you have a one rotor. For example, these are both secondary ports. Neither of them will have a hole machined into them for an injector. They're also larger because these are supposed to be the ones that turn on as you go to higher RPM. But I want to get this mounted to the transmission. We've been working so hard to do. That requires a little bit of ingenuity as well. So thankfully, the traditional 3-rotor has these holes in the front of the block. And that bolts the 1-rotor to the 2-rotor on a 3-rotor. Unlike the billet ones, it's not all full-length bolts. One of the other things I had to do was take these dowel bolts, well, the dowels themselves, and cut them down 15 millimeters so that they're about this long normally. So I cut them back to 100 millimeters in length, and when we put them on here, you'll see why that was pretty much necessary. Otherwise, they would stick way too far. You only have about 11 millimeters from the edge of this, and you don't want this hitting, so you want really a 10 millimeter limit right there. The front goes on. 2 of these, I think it's this one. Hold them at the opposite corners. And there you have one of the few single rotor dummy smart blocks ever. I'm curious how much these 3 plates weigh together. Now there's no E-shaft or rotor, but we will be shedding about 15 pounds, maybe 20 pounds out of going to billet, and the rotor weighs 7 pounds, so kind of what you see here is what I think we'll get overall. So I weigh 199 right now, and so you're calling that about 64 pounds, just the block. That's pretty damn impressive, and like I said, I think it'll end up being around 60 some pounds with the E-shaft, with the rotor fully packed. There is the transmission, almost 100% functional at this moment, and I'm curious how much this weighs. So again, with the 199 base, the transmission weighs more than the engine. So we're talking about 79 pounds. So I'm gonna go ahead and do what I've been wanting to do this entire time, which is see this. Here we go. This is the entire engine as you see it. We'll add one last piece to the puzzle because it looks so wrong. Yep, that's it. That's as far as the engine's going to be. And this is seriously overkill. We don't need this, we don't need that. We do need this, we don't need that. We don't need this. It's gonna be so compact. We're gonna throw this into the car, obviously, and I think we're gonna have to mount the engine from the front. One of the most efficient or inefficient rotary drivetrains you'll ever see.
Oh, wow. Like it's meant to be.
Yeah.
You don't even need engine mounts.
Yeah, we just set it out. That's what we did on the C5 when the engine mounts broke. We just let it sit on the subframe. Well, the real question I have is basically no matter what, if we do a tube frame or anything, there's going to be a mount for the steering rack, and we have to keep that in mind because this looks like the highest that we can possibly get the engine. So the engine really wants to be a little bit lower so it's not hitting the center console. Mm-hmm. So we would have to gut all of that out of the subframe. But I'm worried if we get a tube one, this has to mount to things here. There's going to be a bar going across. Is it here or is it under here? The turbo will come up, maybe out a little bit. Baby turbo here. Intakes doing their thing up to here. Ignition, 1 or 2 ignition coils right there. We absolutely cannot have anything, down this low because it's going to hit the steering column. So that means the alternator is going to have to sit up here, which we've done before, not a problem. But this really eats into real estate for having stuff down here. Is this a mid-engine car?
I would say so.
It's really, yeah.
The oil pump is on it, but the engine itself is definitely behind it.
Yeah, you had another mid-engine vehicle out of us. And it's hilarious because the most of it is really the bell housing. I chose not to cut it back. We obviously have our work cut out for us, and the guys are wasting no time doing that. We've got cooling to deal with, oiling to deal with, electronics to deal with, much less turbocharging this, intercooling, you name it. We have got a lot to do. And so, as much as I want to keep talking, we have to keep moving. So stick around for the rest of this insane video series.